Welcome, everyone. This is Richard. This is a little slideshow I put together about Marsha. I do have a more extensive one on a history of my life I did with it's just 4 parts, but this is all the nice things anyway about my time with Marsha. And Marsha was born in Tomahawk, Alberta in July 12, 1931, and grew up there with her brothers and sisters. There was 8 kids in the family, and I think I list them on the pictures, but there was 8 children, and the parents came over from Russia in the when Stalin took over the farms over in Russia. So anyway, they came over on a boat and took a train from I guess from Montreal over to Alberta and went up and homesteaded up in Highvale area. Marsha was born in Tomahawk, and her brothers were Paul, John, sister Irene, Mary, Anne, and Robert was another brother, and Roy. So that was all the brothers. Marsha and Irene are still alive, and John is still alive, and Paul is still alive at this time. They grew up on the farm anyway, and I have some early pictures I'm showing you on this slideshow. This talk won't last as long as the slides, I don't think, but that's okay. Anyway, they grew up on the farm. Then Marsha came to Vancouver when she was in her late teens, I guess, and she lived with Irene in the West End somewhere in an apartment, and she got a job at the stock exchange, marking the board there when she was young. There's some pictures of her walking down Granville. What a beautiful girl. I mean, I consider myself the luckiest guy in the world to ever get to know Marsha, because I can't say enough good things about her, you know. Anyway, she got a job at the stock exchange, and and she met her first husband, Bill, through there, and they got married, and they had Lynn first, her daughter, and then they had Patty, another daughter, and they lived in Richmond when they were little. I explained it on my big long one, all this whole part, but anyway, they lived in Richmond, and they got transferred down to Los Angeles, and Bill worked down there, and then I don't know how long they'd been down there, but Bill died after a short time they were down there, and Marsha had to pay the house off. I guess she got a job at J.C. Penney, and she worked there for 26 years, raising her daughters, and she told me the hardest thing she ever did was have to tell her daughters when they came home from school that Bill had died, because they really loved him, I guess, and, you know, can't blame them. I wish I would have met the guy. He played piano and everything, too, but anyway, I've been playing music all my life, as you know, and I've been all over the world. I was married once and had 2 children, Chelsea and Jesse, and then me and my wife split up, mostly because of the music business. She wanted to raise the kids like a normal person, and I just couldn't quit the music business. I already had 2 albums out and everything, and, you know, it was just too hard. And so anyway, that was the most hurtful thing I ever experienced. But anyway, I love my children very, very much, and but this is about Marsha. So anyway, I lived by myself for many years and worked on cruise ships and stuff like that. And then I was playing one time, and the first time I ever saw Marsha, she was dancing at the Legion in Crescent Beach when I was playing there. After the cruise ship days, I ended up playing in Legions because I'd sort of lost my circuit, and there was no piano bars left around Vancouver, which I used to play a lot of, and so I was, playing on the stage, and I always look at who's dancing and everything, and I was single, and I I'm playing. I've always favored sort of Nordic or Russian looking women and girls. I like the way their face structure is, and anyway, that's always been my favorite in the world. And I'm playing away. I look out in the audience and I see this girl dancing out there. Well, she's a woman, but dancing, and I thought, wow, now there is a beautiful girl. She moved so uniquely, and I just fell in love with her as soon as I saw her. I thought, whoa, boy, I got to meet her. And just the way she danced just intrigued me so much. And she had everything going for her that I like. Her looks, the way she moved, her facial structure, the way she acted. She was dancing with some guy, I don't know who he was, but I thought, boy, I really want to meet her. I play a lot of dances and I see a lot of people, and, there's hardly anyone I'm ever interested in that, that really moves me, and she really moved me. And so I thought, boy, I'm going to go meet her as soon as I get off, finish my set. And I just sort of started my set, and she was dancing, and I kept watching her all the time. And then I'm playing, and she got up and left. And I thought, oh, no. And so, after I got off the stage at the set, I went around and started asking everyone, because she'd been sitting with someone, and they'd left, and there was only 2 people, I guess, at the table or something. And I went around, I played that Legion many times. I went around to everybody and asked, do you know who that was, that blonde girl dancing out there? And they all said, no, we don't know her. I don't know where she's from. And I thought, gee, and so I kept asking. Nobody knew her. And so anyway, she was on my mind after that. I thought about her all the time, and I thought, oh, gosh, I wish I could have met her. And then I played there about maybe 4 times during the next year, because they used to book me every couple of months, and I played there. Every time I went there, I'd ask the waitresses, I'd ask everybody I knew that were regulars there, because not every time I play there the same people come. So whenever I would see someone new come, I would say, do you remember that one that was dancing here, 4 or 5 months ago, blonde hair, she wore this, what she was wearing. I can't really remember what she was wearing, but I ask everybody. And, the thing is that Irene and Ivan used to drink there all the time. They were probably at the dances all the time, even when Marsha was there, but I didn't really know them. And I'd sort of had a run-in with them at one time when I was playing there, because there was a Chinese couple that wanted to have a tango, and I went and I don't know how to play tangos, so I went and got a tape recorder, and I put a mic on the tape recorder and played it through the PA on my break, and they got up and danced like a little show, and Irene, she's kind of crabby, so she sent Ivan up to tell me to turn the music down, it's too loud or something, and so I kind of told him off, hey, just back off, because they're only doing one dance, come on, and Irene had been president there, and I guess she thought she was boss. But anyway, so I didn't know them, and so I never asked them because I didn't talk to them. But I didn't realize that she was Marsha's sister, because, they don't really look alike. And so anyway, every time I went there, I asked, and nobody knew. And I'd look around White Rock, when I would be out here playing. I wasn't living out here, but, lots of times I'd come out, and I thought, I thought maybe she had moved here, or she was a new lady around town, but after about a year, I started thinking, I guess I'll never see her again, And I was so disappointed because, I kind of been looking for her all my life. And, I mean, I broke up with my wife in 88, and, I'd been single for a lot of years after that, and I'd never met anybody, and when you're young, like when I first got married, it was kind of young love, but, I really, really thought this is the one, and then, so after a whole year, I'm about, sort of so disappointed and giving up. And then, I happened to be playing there one night, and I look out in the audience, and whoa, there she is sitting there. And I went, oh, she's back. How lucky could I get again? And so I couldn't wait to, get off the stage. I thought, I'm not going to let her get away again. And so I got off the stage, and she was sitting with this other lady who ended up being Norma, her friend. And, Marsha remembered me too, because later on in years she told me, I remember that guy with the glassy eyes looking at me quite a lot when I was dancing. And, she must have liked me too, because we didn't meet the first time, but as soon as we saw each other again, it was like instant love. And getting tears in my eyes here. Anyway, I went up and said, oh, where have you been, And I think I even kissed her on the cheek. Or maybe I didn't, I can't remember. But we sat down and we just wanted to touch each other and, get to know each other. It was like so exciting. And I think I held her hand and a little bit and asked her questions, where were you? And when she, and she said, oh, I was living in Los Angeles, but I moved up here now. I went, oh, good. And so we hit it off like unbelievably good. And I don't think we were drinking at the time. I wasn't for sure. And we started sort of touching our feet under the table. And, I wanted to put my arms around her. And, and then apparently Norma said to Marsha, quit touching him under the table. He's going to think you're fresh. And she said, Marsha said, I don't care. I like him. And so I had to keep playing. I hated playing. And then Ed, my friend, showed up, Ed Cerny, and he spied her too. And Norma was always after Ed, kind of, because she never had a man. And then Ed got Marsha up and danced with her. And I was so jealous. I thought, boy, he better leave her alone, And I said to Ed on the break, Ed, she's mine. I you can dance with her, but don't get any ideas about Marsha, because I want to know. I've been waiting for a long time for her. And so anyway, I can't remember. Ed went home early. He never liked Norma too much. And so when I finished, I went and sat with Marsha and Norma for a minute. I can't remember if I had to pack my stuff up. I probably did, but I asked her if I could walk her to her car, and she had her little red T-Bird then. It was brand new. And so I walked her to the car, and I think we kissed on the cheek, and hugged a little bit. And I said, well, do you want to, should we see each other? Do you want to see each other again? She says, oh, yeah. Okay, here's my phone number. Give me a call tomorrow. So, and then she left, and I went home so excited. I thought, oh, boy. I finally found her again. And so I phoned her up the next day, and we started talking on the phone, and we made a date. And I said, well, I was living over in Surrey. Just a sec, I'm taking a drink of my coffee. I was living over in Surrey at a place over there. And so she said, well, why don't we go to Crescent Beach tomorrow? And I said, yeah, that's a good idea. It's beautiful down there. So I drove out, and I had a 64 Chrysler at the time. I drove out, and we went down. We went down to Crescent Beach together. I'm just trying to see how long this thing is right now. Okay, we went down to Crescent Beach together, and took a blanket. And there was sort of not that big of a tree. Now it's a big tree. That was about 2003. Now it's 2020, so, that's a long time ago. And we put the blanket under the tree. We had another blanket we put over top because it was kind of windy that day, and I finally got our arms around each other, and we just laid there and talked and sort of kissed a little bit, and it was so nice because that's the first time we were actually together somewhere where we could actually hold each other and everything, and it was really exciting, and and it wasn't phony or nothing. She wasn't pretending, and I wasn't either. It was just like love at first sight, kind of, and then we came back to the house here, and I don't know. She made some bacon tomato sandwiches, and we sat on the couch and had our arms around each other and kissed a little bit and talked a lot, and talked about everything, and we found out we liked a lot of the same things, same kind of foods and same kind of music, and her dad had been a preacher sort of, and I was going to the Pentecostal church at the time in New Westminster because I'd tried a lot of different churches, and that one was a real old-fashioned style church where the girls wear long dresses and none of this shorts and blue jeans and tattoos and all that, and they had long hair and they wore hats. It was sort of like an old prairie church, and the preacher there, Pastor Reynolds, was just a great preacher. And there was an old lady working there named Sister Newsham that was, she was an old fiery Alberta preacher that she was about in her 80s already then, and she'd get up there with fire and brimstone and talk about how she got, her family didn't like the Bible, and her one sister eventually became a Jehovah's Witness, which bothered her whole life. Anyway, she'd get up there and talk about how she used to sit in the outhouse and read the Bible because her parents didn't like her to read the Bible, and she'd sing hymns to the cows, and she got baptized in an old cow tank, and she memorized 200 and something verses out of the Psalms in the Bible and went to Bible class, became a minister. And anyway, I fell in love with that church. And so anyway, Marsha and I were at the house talking away about things, and I said, well, why don't we go to church together? Because her dad had been, Marsha was drinking wine then a little bit, but not at the house that day or anything, but she'd have the odd drink. I wasn't drinking at the time. But so I thought we'd go to church. And I thought, after hearing where she grew up in the prairies and what kind of her parents were like and everything, I thought, boy, she's going to love this church. And so because I was living in Surrey, she was out here in White Rock, we started phoning each other over and over and over again, 4 or 5 times a day. Anyway, we would phone back and talk for a long time on the phone. And it was so fun. And so anyway, I took her to church, and I knew it. She just loved that church right away. And it was, so old-fashioned and nice. And so anyway, we started, doing all kinds of things together. We'd, we'd go for walks down. We used to like to find rocks and stuff like that. So we dated for a couple of years at least. We got, I guess about a year after I met her in 2003, I think 2005, we got baptized together in that church. And Sister Newsham, the old lady from the prairies, she helped baptize Marsha. And Brother Jobson, this big fat guy, he shouldn't say fat, but anyway, he was. And he baptized me. They speak in tongues in that church, and Marsha said her dad used to speak in tongues, but I never did, and Marsha didn't either. This big guy, though, he kept shaking my shoulder, wanting me to break out in tongues, but I didn't. I just can't do that kind of thing unless it's for real. And so we got baptized together, and we used to go on long walks around. I'd come out here to, White Rock. We'd walk around the dike and all through the wetlands, and we'd find rocks and we'd go out to Crescent Beach and take long walks. Marsha liked to walk a lot, and so did I, and we used to sort of half jog together, and then I like swimming, so I think we went swimming at the pool here a few times, and we just really enjoyed each other's company a lot. And so we started. I think we took a few trips before we got married. When after we got baptized that summer, we planned a houseboat trip up the Shuswap Lake because I wanted her to see Shuswap Lake, where I grew up, and so we went up there and rented a houseboat, and Jesse and Leah decided they wanted to come. I told Jesse we were going up there. We really wanted to go by ourselves and just be by ourselves up there and enjoy watching the stars and everything. But anyway, Jesse and Leah decided they were going to come, and so we kind of said, okay. So anyway, they came up, and we went up there for 3 days on the houseboat, and Marsha discovered Indian paintings on that. We went to this place that Donna told me about called Schwal Bay, and I don't know if it was the first houseboat trip or the second one, but she discovered these Indian paintings that you're going to see on the slideshow here that are just beautiful. And one, I guess it's a fish. It looks like a palm tree kind of thing, but nobody in Sicamous ever knew about those paintings. They're not listed in any of the books, all the Sicamous books or the Shuswap books. There's no pictures of those at all. So she discovered them. I told my cousin Neil at the time, who's died since, but he was doing histories of Sicamous and stuff about those paintings because they're undocumented, and it's a park in there. It's called Schwal Bay. It's just a small little beach. It's really beautiful, and Marsha fell in love with it because the rock collection on the beach is unbelievable. They're all flat mica skipping rocks, and anyway, that was the first houseboat trip, and then actually we went up that lake 3 times, and we took another houseboat trip by ourselves up there because the first one, there was other people. We wanted to be by ourselves more. We didn't really like going out with company, and so we went up there on a second houseboat trip. This is years later, a few years later, but we went up there again by ourselves and stayed for 3 days. The weather wasn't the greatest, but it was a little freaky up there because it's so quiet and dark. And so we had the thing all locked up and had it tied up. The game warden came along and helped us tie up better. We even went skinny dipping together, which everybody's sort of a tradition in Shuswap Lake, and laid on the rocks together. And we had a great time. And we just liked each other's company so much. We didn't really want to socialize with other people that much. And we'd always, after we got together, we were never apart, hardly ever. I mean, when we weren't married, we were, but after we were married, I don't think we were, ever apart, hardly. Maybe once in a very blue moon, I would go to the store by myself, but we spent all our time together, and, we liked it that way. I didn't feel like I was trapped, or she didn't feel like she was trapped, and I never got sick of her company ever. And so we went on that houseboat trip, and then another time we rented a speedboat. There's a picture of her sitting in it on these slides, and we went up to Seymour Arm up Shuswap Lake, which is a place I'd never been before. I was kind of disappointed in it. It's not much different than Anstey Arm, but that was 3 times we went up Shuswap Lake. But anyway, so when I was back to the main part here, when I was living at Coon Towers, and we got baptized at the church and everything, and we kept attending church, and then we would, we phoned each other so much, and finally, I think it was on that first houseboat trip that we sort of talked about getting married. I don't know if I brought it up, or I probably did bring it up, I guess. And Marsha, she had a lot to give up to get married. I didn't really have much to bring to the table, I don't think, other than my talent, and But the thing is that I gave her something nobody else could, and that was, unconditional love, music, and I really did love her, you see. So I wrote songs for her. I gave her so much joy in the last part of her life. She's still alive as I'm talking right now, but I gave her something that nobody else could, and I took her all over the place on holidays and stuff that she would never have gone on by herself. And so, some people thought, because we got married and I was, I'm 15, nearly 16 years younger than her, and it never showed at the time and it didn't seem like that to us because Marsha's very a young kind of a person and beautiful looking. I mean, I can't say enough about her looks. But she was, it didn't show at the time. It didn't matter to us anyway. You're who you are, So we just we hit it off so good, and then so anyway we somehow or other we didn't decide to get married right away. I think I said something about it on the houseboat tour, because we liked sleeping together so much. We ended up, I was always staying out here at Nickel Winder. She'd come in and stay with me at my apartment. We were back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and we started staying for 2 or 3 days at a time together. And so we sort of both decided, I guess, at the same time. We thought about it, though. We talked about it first and then thought about it for, weeks and weeks and weeks before we decided we would get married because, it's a big move when you're in later life. And I had an apartment that was pretty secure for me. I could have had it forever. And I knew if I give that up, I'd be at Marsha's mercy because I don't make a whole lot of money or nothing like that. And so anyway, we thought about that for a while, and we'd been baptized together, and then we decided. So it wasn't a split decision that we'd get married or anything like that, but it was just one of those things where you didn't want to be apart. It was like torture being apart. And we enjoyed each other's company so much and cooking stuff and making things together. And I remember one time I tried to drive out here in the winter when it was snowing. I got about halfway out and had to turn around and go back home because it was so awful. We were so disappointed. But anyway, finally we decided to get married. And so we went to the church. We were going regular at the time. And the Pastor Reynolds, I'd get up and play songs at the church, and he always wanted me to be a member of the musical thing there. And I wrote a song for his daughter when she died called "Let's All Sing a Song for Jesus," or Melody's song. And so we decided we wanted to get a proper marriage because my first marriage was just a civil ceremony. And we wanted to get married under God, on a Bible, and swear to be faithful. We don't have to, it doesn't take a Bible to make you faithful by any means, but we wanted to do it properly and have a real church wedding. And so we talked to the pastor, and he interviewed us, and we'd been baptized, and so he said he would marry us. So we decided to get married in that church, and we went down to Bellingham one time, and we found a beautiful wedding dress down in Bellingham that was, oh man, it's made of satin. It's so beautiful. And Marsha tried it. We went down there. We used to go down to LaConner and all around down in Bellingham area. We liked all the old antique stores. We happened to go in there one day and said to the lady, we're getting married, She said, whoa, you got to see this. Have you got a dress? No? Oh, you have to see this dress. It just came in from an estate sale. It's so beautiful. And so we went and looked at it and thought, gee, that is beautiful. It's a gorgeous dress. And so Marsha went and tried it on, and it fit her perfect. It was just a little bit too long. And so I think the lady gave it to us for $80 or $100. I mean, it cost a fortune to make that dress. It had, anyway, so we bought the dress and came back home. We also bought a beautiful set of dishes there that were fleur-de-lis china dishes for about $70. We used to go. We used to buy. We used to love going to antique stores and buying little things and knickknacks, and that's why we got along so good. We just liked all the same things together. So we went on a lot of adventures, always. And I took her to all my gigs, and she sat there for hours and hours while I played and danced with people, and I never wanted to get away from Marsha. Like, I always hated guys that, oh yeah, the old lady, I'm glad I got away from her. I never felt like that at all. We just loved to be with each other, and we didn't want to split apart ever. So anyway, we arranged the marriage, and all kinds of people came. Lynn and Brian, Marsha's daughter and her husband, and Hannah and Lynn's daughter Hannah and Jonathan, her son. They came and sang a beautiful song there. Hannah sang and Jonathan played guitar. And Harry came, Patty's ex, and we had a couple, Steve and Darlene from one of the Legions came, and then some of the church people came, and my sister came, and from Sycamoose, and there was Jesse and Leah, who he was going out with at the time, and Chelsea and Chris, her husband-to-be. And a whole bunch of people we knew came, and we had this beautiful, beautiful wedding, like a really serious wedding in a church. And it's on YouTube if you want to look it up, Marsha and Richard's wedding, or Richard and Marsha's wedding. Anything you look on YouTube, you got to put Richard Stepp first, and then put the title, because I sort of set it up that way. I don't know why I did it, but I did it that way. And so anyway, we had a beautiful, I wrote a song for Marsha called I Always Dreamed I'd Meet Someone Like You. And it's the truth. And so anyway, I wrote this song for her. And when Paul gave her away because her father had died. And so when she came walking in the church and walking down the aisle in that beautiful dress, I played that song on the piano up on the front of the stage. I always dreamed I'd meet someone like you. And unfortunately, it's not on YouTube. It's on the wedding video, though, if you want to look at it. I should have made a separate recording of it, but I never did. I might write out the lyrics and put them on later. But anyway, I sang the song for her, and then we got married. The ceremony was beautiful and serious and long, too. And Ed was best man, Ed Cerny, my friend, and Lynn was the bridesmaid. And so then they had a beautiful reception downstairs with all kinds of food, and it was really great. And so then we'd planned on, that's when I moved. I gave up my apartment because Marsha had this home in White Rock, which is nicer and bigger and everything, and so I'd given up my apartment. I spent the night before the wedding at my place, and then I drove my Chrysler. We drove to the wedding. I drove to the wedding in the Chrysler, and then it was a beautiful 64 Chrysler. And after we got married and had the reception with everybody, we left and got in the Chrysler and drove out to White Rock here and got our suitcases and everything, and got in the T-Bird and went across the border to the Skagit Hotel down near Bellingham and stayed overnight there. And we had a really beautiful dinner. We had steak and crab, and we had a wonderful time. We had a room, I think, with a hot tub in it. And I don't know, maybe we didn't have a hot tub that time. We used to go down there later years and get a big room with a hot tub and all that stuff. But anyway, we spent the night there. And then we went the next day down to Sunnyside, down the Oregon coast, and we cut over along the Columbia River and went down to Astoria. And then we went to Sunnyside and stayed overnight there because there was, we didn't realize it was a long weekend. It was just packed there, but we ended up getting a motel right on the beach, but on the back of the motel, but the door was jimmied on the thing. Someone had broken into it at one time. It was loose. So Marsha said, well, I'm going to phone them up about that. And so she phoned them up, and complained, and they said, "Oh, we'll give you an upgrade," and they gave us this beautiful room up on the front of the building with a big balcony and everything. There's pictures of us. I think I forgot to put them on the picture slideshow, but I will now that I think of it. Anyway, there's pictures of showing our rings, and we were so happy. And then we spent the night there, and then we went down further down the Oregon coast, stopped at Lincoln City, went down to Newport. And when we were just about at Newport, we were driving along, and Marsha said, "Oh, look at that place we just passed. It's like a rustic old motel." And so I turned around, and we went back there and looked at it, and we thought, gee, that's a neat place. There's no houses or buildings anywhere near it. It's sort of on the edge of a park, and it's kind of old and rustic. And so we rented a room there, and all the rooms were done different styles. Like, we ended up getting the Hollywood room that had my album Holiday in Hollywood, but it had pictures of Marilyn Monroe and Frank Sinatra, and there was a fireplace and a little fire log, and it was not on the very front where the beach is, but anyway, we stayed there, and I don't know, we ended up ordering pizza and sitting by the fire. We tried to go swimming, but it was too cold. But we stayed there for 2 nights, and then we drove around down and around the Oregon coast, went to Depot Bay, and we like to go to little shops looking at stuff and touristy things. And then we eventually came back, and then we started living together here in White Rock, and we had a wonderful time. We went for lots of walks, and we did rock collecting. We used to go down and pick crab apples and blackberries and all kinds of stuff, and make jelly and things like that. And so we used to have a lot of fun together. That's what we did. And anyway, we made 4 trips down that Oregon coast and stayed at that same Moolock Shores. And we stayed there probably, I think, about a week at a time. The first time we stayed 2 nights, but after that we'd go down for a whole week. We just loved that place. And then we started getting a place on the front of the building. And it's always windy there, all night long, and the salt gets all over everything. But it's just a beautiful place. We met a guy that used to stay there next door, Ronnie. He used to sit out with a towel to keep the wind off him. He was from Denver or somewhere like that. He used to go every year there too. And so we used to go exploring every day in different places. We went up to Lincoln City and made, on 2 different trips, we made those glass balls. There's pictures of them on the slideshow here. And the glass balls were, the first one we made, it was a swirly looking one, looked like a beach ball kind of. And so we decided we wanted to make another trip down there. So we made another one that was more clear looking. They're really beautiful. And there's a picture of Marsha with her Grateful Dead t-shirt and her sunglasses on. We made. She's so great. We had so much fun together. And anyway, so we made 4 trips down there. We made another trip to Nelson, BC, where I grew up. Every summer we used to decide to take a trip. So, and I made fairly good money playing gigs all the time. So Marsha came to with. I was playing a lot of legions and stuff, but I was booked solid all the time, mostly on weekends. So we had all the weeks off. During the week, I never played 6 nights a week anymore, and so we did a lot of that. We'd give us an outing together. I guess it was not much for her. I was sort of working, she'd sit in the audience, but still we socialized and went to lots of, we did all these different dances and stuff where they had big buffets and stuff. I took her to, and we met, quite a few people, but we really liked just being together mostly. And now that she's not home, this is my sort of 4th year without her, I miss her so much, and I miss sleeping with her and holding her. So, I since she went to the care home, I've been up there 7, 8, 9 hours a day, every day, hardly ever missed a day. Once in a while, if I had to play a car show, I can't stand being away from her. And, I feel so sorry for her being in that place, because there's, when I'm not there, they're neglected, those people in those places. And, so I'll get into this part later, but back to Nelson. Anyway, went to Nelson, to where I grew up, and she wanted to see stuff like that. And so we took the T-Bird, and we went up there and went through New Denver and all around through Nelson, and found my old house where I grew up, my old school, and we stayed in the old Hume Hotel downtown, which was wonderful, and walked around Baker Street, and I showed her the old Waits News, where we used to go as kids, and where my dad used to work, and Shamrock Cafe, where I used to go as a kid. And then we went to a sort of a hippie vegetable flea market thing on a Saturday there. It was kind of fun. So we had a really good time. We used to, we liked the same foods and salads and, stuff like that. We went down through Weimar and looked at the old hotel there, and there's only one hotel. And that's where there used to be an old restaurant. My parents used to call it Slump's Dump. And then we went down through Castlegar. There's a picture of Marsha and me at Castlegar. I was kind of heavy then. When I first met Marsha, I think after the cruise ships days, where I was slim all my life. When I started not working all the time, I ended up eating popcorn too much. And then Marsha and I used to make rice puddings and tapioca. We both gained weight. I gained way too much weight, and finally I got mad at myself one day looking in the mirror and went on a 6-month diet and lost 60 pounds, thank goodness. I hate looking at those pictures now, because I think, you fat pig, Richard. Anyway, I still swam all through the whole thing, so anyway, we, enough about me. Anyway, we had a nice trip to Nelson, and then we went on another trip. I think I got $9,000 back money from some kind of a thing from the government that I'd paid into. And so we went on a great big trip down through the USA. We left here one summer, and the T-Bird didn't have that many miles on it. So we went down to Seattle, down to Redding, cut over to Santa Cruz, and stayed overnight in Santa Cruz. No, we stayed overnight in Redding, then Santa Cruz, and we went down to the beach and looked at they got a Midway down there and everything. Walked around down there, and then went all the way down through I can never remember the name of that town, not Venice. But anyway, down the Big Sur, we went down to and stayed at Lynn and Brian's house overnight. And the next day we went up and got up and started our big trip. We went down, drove through Palm Springs, looked around in Palm Springs. Didn't see much we thought was worth looking at in that place. I guess maybe we didn't look good enough, I don't know, but we liked it through the desert in Arizona. It was real fun driving through there with all the cactuses and everything. And then we went up to, on my history and my life thing, I go into more details on these, but then we went up to, up through the mountains in Arizona climbing. I didn't realize that we were going to do that. Marsha hates heights, and the roads are so narrow. Anyway, we went up through there and stopped at a place called Jerome, where there's, it's like an old ghost town kind of a place, old hotels that are haunted and all that. We didn't stay overnight there, but it's way up on a mountain overlooking, it used to be a mining place, overlooking the valley. It was beautiful up there. And then we drove down to Sedona and stayed 2 nights in Sedona. We loved Sedona. It's all the red rocks there, and we went to a church there that's built into the rocks. So we stayed 2 nights there. We had a pool, we went swimming, and we used to go around all the secondhand stores and neat things looking for stuff, and buy little knickknacks. And so we stayed there. Then we went from there to went to the Grand Canyon, drove up there and looked around in the Grand Canyon and got some pictures taken there. Marsha didn't complain about the heights. I guess they had a fence up, but went to an old Indian village and stuff. And then we drove down, I don't know, went through Gallup, New Mexico, stopped at an old hotel there that all the movie stars used to stay at with Errol Flynn. And, you know, they used to make a lot of cowboy movies there. Doris Day and James Cagney and all the old movie stars used to stay there. It's a big old kind of a wooden building with a big rock fireplace, and it's really neat there. And then I went to Albuquerque and looked around at Albuquerque, went through all the old town, and we stayed 2 nights in Albuquerque. And we like to have the Mexican food, and so we had lots of Mexican food, and went through the old town, looked at all kinds of neat things. And the weather's so nice and hot and dry there. And so we spent 2 nights there. Then we went up to Santa Fe. We loved Santa Fe too. They got an old town square. So we stayed 2 nights in Santa Fe and went to the old Loretto Church. Well, first we went to the oldest church in the USA. It's an old Spanish church of some kind, Catholic, I guess. And then we went to the Loretto Church where they got that staircase that's got 3 spirals in it. It was built by the nuns had no staircase to get up to the choir part, and so the choir loft, and so they prayed and prayed, and the whole story is this old guy showed up with a mule one day that nobody knew, and he came in and he built this staircase with no nails or anything. It's got no support pole. The only attachment is up where it's attached up the top and where it sits on the bottom, and it's built in such a way that the weight on the stairs somehow keeps it. It's like a miracle staircase, they call it. Most staircases have a pole that, you know, they attach everything to. But this got nothing like that. And it was an unbelievable thing. We'd read about it in a book, so we went there and took some pictures of it and looked at it. And I didn't put all this stuff on it's on my big long history thing I put on part 4 about Marsha. But this is sort of the nice parts. And anyway, we went and looked at that thing, and we watched. It was an unbelievable staircase. But anyway, it was originally built with no railings, and then after that, they went and put railings on because the nuns didn't want to walk up and down it. I don't blame them. But it doesn't look as good with the railings. It looked way better without them. There's drawings of what it looked like. And anyway, the guy that built it took off, and nobody knew who he was, and they never seen him again. And they don't know to this day who it was. And the wood that he brought didn't even come from around the Santa Fe area. It's a spruce that they actually had to rename Loretto spruce because it was a new species of some kind of spruce. Where he got it, they don't know. So it's kind of like a Bible story, you know. And then we went from Santa Fe. We stayed there 2 nights, went for breakfast and had hot tortillas. What did we have? Chili relleno and stuffed peppers with cheese stuffed in them, and these eggs, you know, like Mexican style, refried beans. It was so good. And they had all these vendors. I brought Marsha a beautiful necklace down there. It's upstairs right now. It's an old Indian lady made. Marsha saw it and fell in love with it. And so I still have that thing. And I bought a silver pick, I think, from a guy and sent it to Jesse. I don't know what he ever did with it, but I should have kept it, I guess. But funny with kids, you give stuff to them and they never see it again. Anyway, so we went from Santa Fe. When we were in Albuquerque originally, though, we went to a museum there about it was a Billy the Kid feature they had on it. It showed the bed that he died on, and Pat Garrett's gun that shot him, and all these fancy letters that Billy the Kid, William Bonney, had written. He was a smart guy, actually, and very well educated, contrary to what you'd think about him. But the Lincoln Wars, it was called, and I learned a lot about him. And he'd written letters to the governor at the time and everything, and he was actually sticking up for his boss that taught him English and everything. I think his boss had got killed, and he went out for revenge, and that's another whole story. But while we were there, we saw Wild Bill Hickok's his gun with the pearl handle, one of his pistols, and we'd sort of missed Monument Valley, but we'd been through the Petrified Forest, and we'd seen, like all the Grand Canyon and a lot of that kind of stuff. So we decided we'd take another trip sometime, do Monument Valley and Utah with Bryce Canyon and all that, but we never got to go back there. But so we drove up through Cheyenne and went all the way up to South Dakota and North Dakota, and then we went to Deadwood and stayed there. But we went and saw Crazy Horse, the big mountain that they're carving. They had all kinds of. They've got a big sort of a museum there, and we went there, and we got pictures of us there too. I didn't put the pictures on, but anyway, there's so many pictures that I've been doing this whole thing for kind of a long time now. You can't put everything on, but we went to Crazy Horse and looked at it, and then we went to Mount Rushmore and looked at it for a little while. And we spent a couple of days in Deadwood, and I don't know, went to the casino, went and seen where Wild Bill Hickok was killed. And Deadwood used to be about 3 or 4 feet lower than it is now. It got built up over the years. There was a big fire there once, but they have a basement place with this card table with these dummies sitting around it where he got killed. And we stayed in a real old brick building there, and in a big room. It was a beautiful room. I didn't know Deadwood was way up in the mountains like that, but it is. We never went out to the Badlands. We sort of drove out that way one day, but it was too far. And so we spent some time in Deadwood and a couple of days there and went, seen Crazy Horse and Mount Rushmore. And then we drove all the way back. We missed that, the Devil's Tower. I wish we would have went and seen that thing. We missed quite a few things on that trip, like, where they had the General Custer was killed, and we didn't go right into the Petrified Forest. It's too much because a lot of those things are 30, 40 miles off the road. And we should have went really and stayed right on old Route 66 more than we did, but we didn't, know enough about it. We stayed on the freeway too much, but we did see lots of old things, so that would be another whole trip we would have to do. It's too late now, I guess. But anyway, we went there, and then we drove all the way back through Seattle, and we used to stop at this little town called Alger. There's a picture of Marsha in Alger on this slideshow. We'd stop in Alger and stay overnight. There was a little motel there had a pub across the street with good food, so we'd have food there, and so we actually used to go down and stay there once in a while just for fun. And we went to the Skagit quite a few times, the place we spent our first night of our honeymoon, because it's a sort of centralized down there, and you can stay there it wasn't that expensive. We used to get a big room with a hot tub, and we had a lot of fun down there, do a bit of gambling, and drive around to all these little towns around there, La Conner and Concrete and places like that. Then we went up a couple of trips to Osoyoos. We used to stay at I think it was called the Spanish Vista Motel up there, and right on the beach. So we used to, go around up and through Naramata, Osoyoos, Karamias. We kind of like that dryish desert kind of temperature, and the lake's not as nice as Shuswap, but we used to stay there and barbecue. They had a barbecue you could do, and we'd order food in, and we go exploring. That's what we used to like to do, and so we went up there about 3 times and stayed. Then we went out to Yale, out past Hope. We went out there about 2 or 3 times and stayed in a little motel. We loved Yale. It's kind of like a little tiny town with a big history. There used to be 30,000 people lived there. Now there's less than 200. And we even seen a trailer there once that we should have bought. $25,000 on a lot with where you owned the lot, and it had a community swimming pool and a caretaker for $25 a month. But we never did. But anyway, we liked Yale, and we went to the museum there and took pictures, and I played the piano there, and it was all, Yale was a really neat, we liked it out there in the mountains. And then I took Marsha all the way up to Edmonton once, to Highvale, not to Edmonton. Drove up through the Yellowhead Pass or whatever it's called, and along the Illecillewaet River, and we went rock hunting. We found some neat rocks there too. We used to stop for lunch at this little park and we'd go down, explore down the river, and went through Jasper. We drove all the way up without stopping, kind of. I forget how long it took us, 14, 15 hours. We were so beat when we got there, and then we drove into Tomahawk. There was no place to stay. Where Marsha was born, there's only a sort of a hotel there with a couple of gold guys sitting out the front, but they don't have rooms or anything. So we had to turn around and drive back to Edson or somewhere like that and stayed overnight. And then we went exploring up through Tomahawk and Highvale and all that area to look around. We went up to actually find her parents' graves, but Marsha couldn't remember where they were buried. And we didn't phone John at the time. We should have, I guess, but we kind of liked being by ourselves. We didn't feel like going, and then you got to visit and do all that stuff. So we just like our own little adventures. And then we ended up driving around quite a bit, and she showed me the old Caldoun's place and some places where she'd been as a kid. And then we finally found the old barn, her dad's old barn. I got some pictures of it, and I took a picture of Marsha there, and then we took a little Bible and wrapped it up real good in plastic in a box and stuck it in a crink in the wall, and put a bunch of moss around it for her dad in honor of her father, who loved the Bible, So we did stuff like that, kind of neat things, And then, so anyway, when we went on all those trips together and took pictures, and we had a lot of fun. And living at the golf course here, we tried golfing a little bit, but we weren't that good at it. And the big golf courses, it's free golfing and everything, but the people are so fussy on golf. They're always sort of pushy behind you, and I was too nervous to do that. We ended up going to par threes quite a bit and playing golf. And so we, like I said, we used to go and make jam and jellies and crab apple stuff, wild crab apples, and did a lot of walking along the beaches, and we went out every day and stuff like that. Later on, later on, we used to go to the mall and hang around there and everything. And so we had a lot of fun together. We'd lay down by the fireplace every day and have a little rest together. And we got Marsha to sing with me on 2 or 3 songs that are on YouTube. One's called Richard Stepp, Roger's Song. She's singing on that. Another one, if you look up Richard Stepp, where it says, I'll Never Forget, she's singing on that one. I'll never forget, I'll never forget. I sing with her, but we did that one together too. And then another one, if you look up, it says Richard Stepp, When I'm Gone. It's actually my funeral song I wrote. And so me and Marsha sang, when I'm gone, when I'm gone, when I'm gone, when I'm gone, I just loved her so much because she was so kind of old-fashioned, like the old church kind of person. And, anyway, I can't say enough good things about Marsha. I think she's the most beautiful girl in the world in my eyes, and even now that she's older and in a care home, I spent so much time with her there every day. It's like, it's just broken my heart that I can't be with her, and sleep overnight with her anymore and hold her. But I hold her a lot anyway. I go up early in the morning lots of times and lay with her on the bed and hold her. And I took her all over town for a long time now and took her to the vegetable market. And we still did a lot of fun things. And I would take my guitar up and play music all the time on the balcony, and her feet would go and up and down. She'd sing along and talk and wave her arms around. And I always took her, nobody else has people visiting them like I visited her. I was there for 7, 8, 9 hours a day for years and years now, and hardly ever miss a day. And I've always taken her over, and there's pianos all over the place in there, and so I always take her and play piano with her. And I used to get her to do artwork too. She did a whole bunch of different sort of line drawings with crayons when she could, and they're actually beautiful. I got a whole bunch of them. I'm not putting everything on this slideshow. It's just too much work. I've been doing it for months and months, but there might be one on there. There's one on the other history one. But anyway, she did that, and I used to always sing that song. It's not my song, but have I told you lately that I love you? Can I tell you once again somehow? Have I told you with all my heart and soul how I adore you, Marsha? And she goes, what? I'm telling you now. Anyway, she's so cute. And you know what? Everybody at the care home just loves her. And not as much as me, of course, but I love her more and more and more and more, and I miss her so much. And she is so beautiful in my eyes that I don't care if all her teeth fell out or whatever. She's still beautiful. And she's actually, everybody's got good and bad points, I suppose, but we've had a few ups and downs here and there, and she's a feisty person, but what the heck, if you get something that good, you got to expect the other side of it's going to be a little feisty too. And she's very warm-hearted, and inside she's still a little girl like anybody else, and she's very, very warm, and she's very she's a generous person, really. She is. She's good-hearted, and she's very nice to people without ever asking for anything back. And so I can't say enough good things about her. She's been a wonderful addition to my life. I mean, I never thought I would find a happiness like I have with Marsha, and it's like I can't stand to be away from her. Like I said, I can't wait every day to see her and kiss her and hold her. And she's so funny. She can be so funny, that girl. And oh boy, I just love her anyway. That's all much as I can say for now. But anyway, God bless you all, and God bless Marsha. And once again, she's the love of my life, that girl. Okay, welcome everyone. This is a little song I wrote about Marsha, my wife. That's her in the background, her picture and a painting I made of her. And we have a lot of fun doing this song, and her feet go up and down, and she laughs and points around and sings. And it's sort of about the story of how we met when I was playing at this place, and I saw this beautiful girl out dancing on the floor. I thought, wow, boy, I'd like to meet her. And I couldn't get over how nice she moved and everything. And so I thought, well, when I finish playing, I'll get off the stage and go meet her. And then she left, and I was playing there back and forth for a whole year. I kept asking everybody about her. Do you know who that blonde girl was? No, we don't know her. And so after a whole year, I thought, geez, I guess I'll never see her again. And so I happened to be playing there. I look out in the audience, and there she is sitting there with her girlfriend. And I went, wow, she's back. And so I went up and started talking to her. And she remembered me too. And so, I don't know, we hit it off so good. And I walked her to the car and everything. We made a date. And After that, it's history. So here we go here. This is the story about. I love my Marsha. I know she loves me too. I love my Marsha, and I know she loves me too. Well, she's so wonderful. Lord, she thrills me through and through. First time I saw her, she was dancing around the floor. First time I saw her, she was dancing around the floor. Before I could meet her, she went walking out that door. I asked everyone if they knew that beautiful girl. I asked everyone if they knew that beautiful girl. They told me, we don't know her. I said, wow, she sets my heart a whirl. I asked her a whole year, hoping she would come back to me. I waited a whole year, hoping she'd come back to me. When she finally walked back in the door, my heart leapt with glee. I love my Marsha, I know she loves me too. I love my Marsha, I do, and I know she loves me too. She's so wonderful, she thrills me through and through. Kissed her on the cheek and asked her for a date. I kissed her on the cheek, I asked her for a date. It was just the beginning, love so great. We went to Crescent Beach, on a blanket beneath a tree. Went to Crescent Beach, laid on a blanket beneath a tree. And I think of that occasion, then our arms around each other, said our love free. 3 years later, we walked down the aisle. 3 years later, we walked down the aisle. When I think back then, I get a great big smile. I wrote a song for her to sing her that day. I wrote a song for her and sang it on her wedding day. Dreamed I'd meet a girl like you, and my love was never the same. I love my Marsha, I know she loves me too. I love my Marsha, and I Oregon coast. Went on a honeymoon down the Oregon coast. Stayed at the Moolock shores, and believe me, it was the most. We've been so happy since we met. We've been so happy since we met. It was the best time of our lives. It's not over yet. I love my Marsha. I know she loves me too. Love my Marsha. I know she loves me too. She's a wonderful. She thrills me through and through. That's going to have to do because, boy, oh boy. I still hear that thing going in the background. Okay, that's it. That's one take for me, and that's enough.